Computer. Hi, Dr. Kim. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Pontea. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you again. I know it's a work day for you, so I appreciate you taking the time. Uh,
Absolutely.
yes, I just wanted to share with everybody how I met you. I came to you when I was not feeling well at all. Another one of my clients told me that you had saved her life, and so you came very highly recommended. And when I came to your office, you were just such a genuine doctor, such a God-led doctor. So that's why I wanted to do this interview so other people could meet you and could be helped by your services.
Well, I'm glad that I was able to help you and that God was able to work through me.
Yes. Yes. So could you share a little bit about like your path, how you ended up becoming a doctor, growing up, anything you feel you want to start to share so people can get to know you?
Well, I guess the best way to explain this is to go way, way back when I was growing up in Korea, because I was born in Seoul back in, believe it or not, in 67. And I grew up in an orphanage for the first 6 years. And
Mhm.
so during that time, of course, as a kid, we don't have any religious path, but I always felt something bigger than myself. As a kid, I just knew there's just something bigger than what I'm going through. Because in the orphanage where we grew up, it was tough. And unfortunately, during that time, especially in the late 60s, early 70s, it was not very well run. So we as kids, I just remember my earliest memories running around looking for food, water, or we would just stick together as young kids, just literally in survival mode. But yet, during even in those moments when we couldn't find food or we were freezing during the winter in Korea, I just felt happy. I just felt, wow, we'll be taken care of no matter what. And I always felt that with me. And so, of course, I really didn't worry how we're going to find food or water. But anyway, as kids, we made it. I just remember I would be the runner and I would go get food, water, or one of the kids would distract, and that's what we had to survive.
Yeah.
And then I was adopted at age 6, and so my family is they all live in northern part of Minnesota, and so we grew up on a farm. And now growing up on a farm, we were living as naturally as we can. We were living off the land. We were living with nature, and so that was probably a very strong background or strong reason why I became a naturopathic doctor, because
Mhm.
we just learned to be self-sustainable and live off the land. And of course, we ate very healthily too. We had our own beef cattle, we had our own garden that sustained us for the whole year. And so we were very healthy kids growing up. And then I went to college. I went to a very small college and then worked in industry for 5 years. But during those 5 years, I just had a strong aching to go back to school. And
Mhm.
so I decided to go into the School of Public Health at the University of Minnesota in epidemiology. And during my second year, second to last year at the School of Public Health, I remember I was late to my class and I thought, oh, shoot, I gotta, get to class. I'm gonna miss it or be late. So I went this different route. And on the way to get to my class, I just felt a strong voice telling me, Kim, go back into that classroom you just passed.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, this is strange. Did I just hear that? And then I also felt a strong feeling and felt compelled that I had to go back and go
Mhm.
into that classroom. So I did. It was so strong, I couldn't resist it. So I went into the class, sat in the back, and it was a naturopathic student from Bastyr University
Mhm.
talking to these medical students about naturopathic medicine. And I've never heard of naturopathic medicine. I never heard of Bastyr University, but I was in wonder and awe, like, wow, I had no idea this existed. And at the end of her talk, she gave out the phone number to contact Bastyr University for anyone interested in the program. And so, of course, I wrote it down, and I ultimately missed my class, and I ran back to my cubicle because I had a cubicle where I was an RA and a TA,
Mhm.
and I called the school and asked for the application form, and I knew this is the direction I'm going to head. So I finished my master's of public health and then flew to Seattle to Bastyr University. And that was the beginning of my journey to become a naturopathic doctor.
Wow.
And so that was from 97 to 2001. And then after that, then I did 3 years training with a team of doctors, medical doctor, naturopathic doctor, chiropractor, acupuncturist for 3 years in the Seattle area. And
Mhm.
that was from 2001 to 2004. And then finally, then at the end of 2004, I landed here in Encinitas. But I didn't get my practice started right away when I moved to Encinitas. And luckily, when I moved here, I needed something just to get started to make money. So I was hired by this company to be the hormone specialist.
Mhm.
That's why I'm in practice now. That's my specialty is bioidentical hormones for men and women. But
Mhm.
anyway, that was, I know, goes way back. So you just have an idea what
Yes.
led me to become what I am now.
Yes. Wow. That's such an amazing story. And it's like you came from some place that like even though you were alone, you didn't feel alone. You felt the joy of God, and
Never felt alone.
then God was guiding your career, and now you're in Encinitas helping a lot of people that believe in God and need medical support, right?
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
what I'd like to do with each of the patients is I always just ask God to guide me. And
Mhm.
my goal is for every patient, yes, they come in for, whatever ailment, and I ask that God just guide me to help them with the ailment, but also that every patient can just feel the peace when
Yes.
they leave and to have that peace.
Yes, I definitely felt that. I felt like coming to you, I was bringing you all of my medical history, and you helped me get clarity and put everything like in order, because it was kind of like everywhere, kind of everything, you know? And so that did give me peace, because I think it was kind of like a chaos before, and talking to you and having you listen to me actually with the ear to resolve it, instead of most doctors are just listening to just give you a prescription and get you out. You were actually listening. And so I do feel like it gave me peace of mind on top of the medical support that I received from you. So thank you for
Mhm.
that.
Well, absolutely.
Yes,
And I'd like to just make sure that every person where I want them to feel like they've been heard.
exactly. Yes, you definitely do that. I always felt that you're very patient in your sessions with me. And so, so tell us more about like how God operates like in your life now, in your practice, or if you want to share about like anything else, how your spirituality and your practice
Sure.
go together, you know?
So when I was adopted, actually, even in Korea, I just remember in the orphanage at times we as a group we were, I guess you would call it, go on field trips. And I remember one of the field trips in the orphanage is I remember we went up this mountain,
Mm,
and at the top of this mountain was this incredible Buddha statue.
mhm,
And I just couldn't believe how big that was. And I just remember, wow. And I vaguely remember just how it was at night. And I vaguely remember when the sun was rising, how the sun was shining on this big Buddha statue.
mhm,
And that memory stuck with me. And so that was the very beginning of, wow, what is this? And then when I was adopted, our family, and actually all of us kids are adopted. I'm the oldest, and my sister, she's from Korea. We're not biologically related. And then my brother is Swedish. He's Scandinavian.
oh,
But anyway, all of us we went to church,
mhm,
and so we went to two different churches really. The main church we went to was a Methodist church, and
mhm,
then we also went to a Baptist church since our grandparents who pretty much lived with us, they were Baptist, and so it was fun. We would go to Bible camp, whether it be a Baptist Bible camp or a Methodist Bible camp, and
mhm,
that was our upbringing. And then in college, I thought, I want to go to a small Christian college. So I went to, it was Baptist affiliated. And that
mhm,
was a great environment for me to be in at that time, where I thought, okay, I can get to learn to know God through this Baptist college.
mhm,
And so for 4 years, I went there and we read the Bible, we had chapel, we had Bible study. And at the end, when I graduated, I still felt like, something just still feels missing. I
mhm,
know God is this loving, all-embracing God. He doesn't exclude people just because they didn't profess, Jesus as their savior right before they died. And so then on my own, I started exploring other religions. I read numerous spiritual books. And then finally, I decided, you know what? I want to learn how to meditate. I think that's the way, because I just remember in the book of Psalms that I read back in ninth grade, and that verse, I still remember it, reading it. It says, "Be still and know that I'm God. I thought, you know, I think that's the answer. I just have to learn to be still and just to calm the mind or whatever I can and get to know God and to listen, to feel. And so I started doing that on my own, where I just sit, and the most I could do at that time was just 5 minutes. And slowly but surely over the years, and this is in the late 90s that tried, just sitting longer and longer. And now it's nice where my body is able to sit still for an hour, 2 hours, and to really try and keep the mind still, where you really do feel God's presence. And it's a constant progress. I mean, I don't want to say I'm ever there, but I feel like, I don't know if you've seen that painting in Michelangelo where God and the man, they're just about to touch fingers. I
Yes.
feel like that's me, where I'm just about to touch his finger, where I feel so close, and you feel his presence. The more still and the longer I can stay still, you feel his presence. And that's a very important part of my life now.
Mm.
Morning and evening, without fail, I'll sit just in that stillness, and that verse that always rings in my mind, be still and know that I'm God. Because I know God is here, and it just us trying to listen to him. I know he hears me. I'm always talking to him, but now I need to hear him, listen to him.
Yes, I love that. So well said. God is found in the silence a lot of times, and he's just waiting there. And then, like, yeah, I feel like you are very connected to God. Like, I feel like you guys are holding hands, but I know what you mean. That feeling of meditation, it's like when he comes in, it's like, oh, that feels so good, right? And
It
so,
does.
yeah, and you do that every morning and every night, no matter
Every
what.
morning, evening, and you know what? When I have periods of time where I can do it here in the office, I love doing what I call them 5-minute dips.
Hmm.
Made a really good habit, and just even 5 minutes. At other times, it's only been 2 minutes, where I sit down, it's for 2 minutes. I have a little timer, and it's just really nice. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, I call them little dips where you can just try and just feel God's presence.
Hmm.
And it really makes the day go better.
Yes, I bet, especially because you're seeing patient after patient, and some people are coming to you with really painful things. So that probably is like a reset for you to be fresh throughout the day, right? As things
Well,
go.
absolutely. It's a breath of fresh air. And something that I've noticed also as I've been, sitting, whether it be 5 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour, where you start to feel that peace.
Mhm.
And it reminds me of that verse about the peace that passeth all understanding.
Mm,
And then and then something beyond that has started to happen now, where it's not just the peace that you feel, you actually start to feel this joy.
mhm,
And so when people, because one time I told them, boy, I just feel so much joy.
mhm,
And and then they say, oh, you mean you're happy? And it's like, well, no, when
mhm,
you're happy, it comes and goes.
mhm,
Any little thing just can take that happiness away, and then something can make you happy again. And I said, this joy is much deeper than that.
mhm.
Or even when things aren't going great, you still feel this joy where it's more sustainable. It's solid. That's what
Exactly.
I feel.
And joy is the highest vibration in the emotional guidance scale. Joy is the highest vibration, and the color of it is hot pink. I found on one chart. And I think it's interesting that you had it since you were a kid, even in an orphanage where you were just like probably in the most challenging circumstances a little kid can experience, that joy was with you. So that's how you know God was with you, because God to me is always joy and peace. And when he's present in my life, I feel the joy and the peace. So.
Exactly. I mean, of course, in the orphanage, we really didn't have time to be on our own because we were always together.
Mhm.
But even then, I don't want to say I had felt this joy, but I was just always happy.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like a peace beyond understanding, a happiness beyond understanding. Because, a lot of times people say, like, well, I can't be happy because this in my life is not working out. It's like, well, there's always going to be challenges in life, but we can still have that state. And it's a spiritual thing. It's beyond psychology, right?
Hmm. And I remember when I went back to Korea for the first time in 1994, I went back to try and find my birth parents. I
Mhm,
never did find them, but it was still very healing.
mhm,
And it was with a group of other adopted Koreans. And this one other person who was traveling in the group, I remember he and I had this big philosophical discussion.
mhm,
And we were talking about what can make you happy.
mhm,
And I told him, well, a lot of things can make you happy. I think I was 25 years old. And I said, oh, a lot of things can make you happy. Good Korean food can make you happy. being in a good relationship. And then he said, no, Kim, nothing can make you happy. And I thought, oh, that's baloney. And he says, no. And when I think back to our conversation, he was right, really. Yes, they give us temporary happiness, but I realized now what he was talking about. What can make you truly happy? That's what he was trying to tell me. Like, really, nothing can make you truly happy where you're just always happy eternally, because things come and go and you get tired of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then through my own experience, I guess, where through the meditations where you start feeling this peace, this bubbles, then you start feeling this bubbles of joy. And I thought, he's right. Nothing in this world can make you happy. But when you feel this peace and this joy inside, of course, that's makes you happy.
Mm-hmm.
But it far surpasses anything that this world can give you at all. Because happiness comes and goes, but really this joy outlasts all the happy and sad experiences of life. It really does. It makes you strong as thunder, and yet I also like to say soft as a feather.
Exactly. That's true power, right? To have that kind of power and not hurt. I heard the spiritual person say that, like you might have the power to send thunder, but choosing not to do it, that's true power. And that's the spiritual strength. And that's why I know the joy comes from God, because a lot of times in my life, things have been very challenging, but I'm just giddy. And I'm like, why am I laughing in the midst of all these challenges? That's silly. But no, that's God giving that gift to me. And I know exactly what you're talking about. So.
So true. And and it may sound strange, but I sometimes feel like God's winking at me through all the little things that I see in nature. It's like, this is God actually winking at me. It's so cute.
Yeah, he's so playful. God is very playful, I think. Like he's like a little kid a lot of times. Like I know he's a very grand being, obviously, and he's created all of our universes, but a lot of times I see God as like a little kid just coming to play with me. And even in the Bible, it says that, right? Like be like children and you shall enter heaven. And so,
Oh, so true. I think it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, something stopped me in my tracks. And I saw these, I couldn't believe I was seeing it. They were baby hummingbirds. It
mhm,
was a baby hummingbird in their nest, and their little beaks were out waiting for their food. And I saw the mother hummingbird going back and forth. But that just gave me the greatest joy. And I just stood there for a long time watching the mother hummingbird feed these little baby chicks. I mean, I did go close up to them so the mother hummingbird flew away, but I thought, I just want to take a look at these little baby chicks, hummingbird chicks. It was the cutest thing. And
exactly.
oh, thank you, God. You were winking at me through these little baby hummingbird chicks.
Exactly. And that's probably how he sees the world, right? Like he probably gets so much joy out of all the animals being fed. God cares about all the animals so much. So when you have that experience, I feel you're going in the mind of God and you're seeing the world as God does, which is, he's really fascinated. Even in the story of Noah, right? He saved all the animals because he said they were very pure and innocent. So a
Hmm.
lot of the people didn't get saved because they had already kind of gone very
Yeah,
corrupted. But the animal
yeah.
was very worried about them. I just watched a movie Noah with recently again with
Russell
whatever that
Crowe.
thing. Yeah, it was amazing. And I was just looking at the world and I'm like, that's how our world has become. It's kind of become that thing. And next week we have the eclipse, which is the Jonah eclipse. And you know the story of Jonah really well.
I do. The prophet. He was a prophet that tried to avoid doing God's work. But
Mhm.
God, had to shake the earth to get him to go back and do God's work. And I remember you sent me the link, and it's no accident, just where it starts. Yeah, Jonah, Texas. And then when I looked up the path of the eclipse from 2017,
Mhm.
oh, it makes an X mark, and oh dear, I just hope, you know, that if this is a warning sign that we can all change for the better.
Exactly. And so, like, so you're not a judgmental person at all. You're very compassionate. You and your wife are both very compassionate individuals. But if you had to say, what do people need to change to be on more on God's path? What do you think are some qualities that are important for humans to have to be
Well,
on God's
I know that we all say, okay, we need to love God, but really, we need to love ourselves.
path? Mhm.
It's truly, if we can have that self-love, I think this world would be a better place and
Mhm.
people would be less judgmental. And of course, yeah, I know that one of the big things, when God used these prophets in the Old Testament, and even now there are prophets out there where, yes, we do need to turn to God too, or turn within,
Mhm,
because God is within.
mhm,
And I think when they can feel that and be that,
mhm.
we can change this world like that. We
Exactly.
can change world hunger. We could end all these wars, or all
Mhm,
this bigotry, this division, and
mhm,
just have more unity, harmony, and then hopefully, end all the people who are starving, or the people who are just in constant poverty. But
mhm,
it's just turning within, because the God is within, where we can love ourselves and
mhm.
also just get on our knees and love and worship God in our
Exactly.
own way, because everyone has their own path. And I
Absolutely.
really do believe now that there are many paths to God. One path is not better than the other, just like some people like apple pie, blueberry pie. For me, I love blueberry pie, but some might like rhubarb pie. I mean, God, I don't want to compare him to a pie, but there's just many different ways to
Mhm,
find and to feel God. And God's just everywhere. He is everywhere.
mhm,
And so in each person, like the Native Americans, you know how they see God? They see a spirit deer in
mhm,
the woods. And I was reading a story of a Native American who says, you know how I see God? I see the spirit of a deer
mhm,
running in the woods. And they're like, wow, that was so beautiful.
mhm.
That's his God.
Exactly.
And then of course my God, and I grew up, Christian, where I do feel the Christ within me.
Mhm.
And I just pray to, Jesus, help me to be the Christ, so I
Yes.
can be him the Christ, if I
In
can
the
be.
Christ. Yes, that's very appropriate for you. And I feel like you are following Christ's path because you're helping the people that are sick. And God says that, right? Help the sick and the needy. And that's a part of the Bible. And the 144,000 prophecies talked about a lot right now, on YouTube, there's a group of Christed ones that will come to the earth and that kind of stuff. I've been told that the number is a lot bigger now, that it's a
Mm.
lot more than that. But I would be curious to hear what you want to share about it because a lot of light workers are connecting to it. So, yeah.
Well, it's the critical mass. When I was taking epidemiology,
Mm,
we needed that herd immunity where people are protected. And as far as herd immunity for the world, for enlightenment, 1%. Even if we can have 1% of the
mm,
people who are turning to the light and be the light, that's all we need. In
mm,
herd immunity, I think it was 60%, and it is a lot.
mhm,
But for just bringing light to this world, 1%. People go, what? That's it? Yeah,
mm,
that's how much power one person with that light has.
absolutely.
So there is hope. And so when you think about 2 billion people
Mm.
on Earth, and then 1% of 8 billion, what is that? Is it 8 million?
Yeah, like 10% of it would be, yeah, like 800 million or 800. It's hard for me to do math,
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but anyway,
but
just
not many.
yeah, there's not many, but 1%. And even then, I was talking to someone who says, no, Kim, 0.1%. That's how much power light has. Like, whoa, point 0.1, that's all, that's it. And
Hmm.
that was his stuff when we were chatting. It was actually last week. We were chatting about that. How many people do you think it would take just to save? And then he went on to tell the story when God was going to destroy, what is it, Nineveh, or I can't, Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot was arguing with God. And he says, for the sake of 10 people, save the city. Or for the sake of just one saint, save the city.
Hmm.
Like, for the sake of that 0.1% in this world who are light beings, God will help this earth. And
Yes.
so I think we are close. I know we in the news we hear about all this calamities and division, but I think that's even more out there are the light beings. They're
Hmm.
just not being recognized because they're the silent workers. They're not going to go out and brag, saying, "Hey, look what I'm doing to save the world." They're
Exactly.
just quietly doing their work and they're spreading the light. And so when I was talking to my friend, when he was saying point 0.1, I'm going to stick with that answer.
Hmm.
I always thought 1%, but point 0.1 sounds better and is more hope. We don't need as many people.
Absolutely. And I know Dr. Hawkins, David Hawkins, he had said like one awakened person, their aura goes so wide. And that's why it affects so many people. So you could just be in your house, as long as you're meditating, you're bringing that light 5 miles around you, 10 miles around you, everybody's receiving that light. And so it's like, I kind of see it as like we're all acupuncture points on the earth. And so we're like needles and we're receiving it and we're sending it to the body of Mother Earth, and enough light comes out, the darkness just dissolves. Because if a room is dark and you light a candle, all the darkness goes away with one candle. So light
Yes,
is so
I
much more
love
powerful.
that. Because another saying is for a person be like the moon. Because we know if you like the moon, how it's bright compared to all the little stars out there. Be like the moon and then help to spread this light. And I like that. And I remember, I think I was fresh out of college and I
Mhm,
was reading the story about angels appearing to God, because
mhm,
this is when I was just reading countless spiritual books, trying to find ways, how can I get to know God? How can I really know God? And yes, I read the Bible quite a few times already, but I still feel like I didn't know it. But anyway, I read this book and it's talked about angels appearing to people.
mhm,
Like, oh, wow, let's hear about their experiences. And this one story, this angel appeared to this boy.
mhm,
And it was somewhere in Europe, and an angel told him, I want you to give water to the people. I want you to feed the people. And the boy, of course, oh, whatever, okay, fine.
mhm,
And and then that was it. That was the message to the boy. And boy didn't change anything, and then the angel appeared to the boy again. Because now the boy, he had gotten sick. And the angel said, there is this well. Go to the well and drink the water. And so the boy did, and he got healed. And
mhm,
then the angel said, this is where you will be to help the people and give them water. So that's what the boy did, and he did that in the story. I don't know if it's true or not true. Anyway, just a story about angels appearing, but that's what he did for his whole life, from a little boy to a man to an older man. He
mhm.
stayed there and gave water to the people as per instruction of the angel. And I thought, that's gonna be me. I
Yes,
want to be like that boy
yes, yes,
and to give water to the people and
yes,
help the people, because we all need that water.
exactly,
So
exactly.
whether it be through my advice or hopefully just me trying to give people hope,
Mhm,
that's gonna be me just giving them that water, the sips
exactly.
of water.
I love that. And so that's the book that kind of you feel was like one of the life-changing books for you.
I
That-
remember reading that. How angels talk. It was a book I got from the library. I thought, oh, I'm gonna read this book about how angels have touched people's lives, and that was one of the stories that really struck me.
Wow. I know like it's like 80% of the world or something believes in angel. Like it's like a really big number. So it's not like a small number, but even though people, not everybody believes in God or religion, you could say, but everybody seems to believe in angels. And
Well,
it's,
when you look at their near-death experiences, their stories, they all talk about, oh, my great grandmother was my guardian angel, or this person's my guardian angel. So it's comforting to know they are watching over us. And I know I have my guardian angels. And I really believe for me, my one of my guardian angels is my birth mother.
oh, yes.
I truly do feel it's just a strong feeling she has passed. And only once did I dream about her a while back, where I saw her and I knew she was my birth mother in my dream.
Wow.
And now she's watching over me.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like that's true because before we even started the interview, I was going to ask you, have you ever had a dream of your birth parents? Because I felt like they would have come through. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. So I feel like that.
Yeah, my birth mother, just that once, I remember that just it was like a glance, and I knew she's my birth mother. And then my adoptive mother, she has come to me several times. She
Mhm,
passed away in 1994.
mhm,
And she has come to me several times. And unfortunately, there were some unresolved things that I wish would have worked out. So I think that's why she has come to me several times in dreams. We
mhm.
can just work it out that way.
Yes, they always, when they go on the other side, they're like, oh no, I did this wrong. I did this wrong. And they always want to come and like make peace so that everybody is at peace because they immediately go into like their angelic self, it seems like when they
They
cross over
do.
and the human conditioning just goes away.
Because I consider myself very lucky. I had two mothers. The one
Yes.
who gave me birth and the one who gave me hope, who
Wow.
brought me up and made me who I am. Because it was my adopted mother who had a huge influence on my life to be who I am. She's the one who really encouraged me to strive harder because I struggled in school because the language was just, I don't know, for some reason, I just couldn't grasp English very well in the
Mhm,
first, kindergarten, especially first, second, third grade. But
mhm,
I remember she was always so encouraging and
mhm.
constantly encouraging me to read. And so I thank her so much for that.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, it definitely was a miracle that God placed you in that family, right? And to be in that natural environment,
On a
God.
farm too, best way.
Exactly. It's like God is always looking out for us and giving us things better than it's to like make our path as advanced as possible. So that's so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm just really glad how I grew up in an orphanage where, we were just out in the big city to this farm where you're out in the middle of nowhere, northern Minnesota, lots of land, fresh food, fresh air.
Yeah,
It was the best way to grow up.
absolutely. Absolutely. And so and sometimes people like have you heard about attachment theory in psychology, how they talk about the first few years of life determines how we attach as adults? So sometimes they say if there was an attachment break, like the children were taken away from their family or something, later on it'll be hard for them to have attachment. But you have a very stable marriage, you have the stable friendship, so you completely nullify that theory. And I like to bring that up because a lot
It's
of people,
God's
oh,
grace, it is.
exactly.
Because I remember back in Minnesota, I belonged in this organization called Minnesota Adopted Korean.
Mm,
And it was actually, it was right before my first trip to Korea, 1994, and that was the year my mother passed away. And that's when I really started doing this soul searching. Who am I?
mm,
Who am I? So I thought, oh, there's this Minnesota Adopted Korean organization. I'm going to join them.
mhm,
And then it's called MAC, M-A-K. And through them, that's when they told me about this trip to Korea, where I can find my birth mother possibly, and just unite with other adopted Koreans. And it's nice getting connected with them and do my own soul searching.
mhm,
And that was a good way to get connected that way and then go to Korea for my first time. And in Korea is when I realized I'm not Korean,
mhm,
even though I look Korean.
mhm.
I probably offended quite a few Koreans because I didn't know their culture because we stayed with host families. I mean, it was still a fun trip, but it was a wake-up call realizing, I'm really not Korean. I can't speak their language. I don't understand their culture. And and of course, the host families were very gracious and they understood. I didn't understand any of that. But that was for me the first time where I realized, oh wow, okay, all right, I'm not Korean. I'm happy who I am. And that was very healing for me because prior to that, I was so sensitive about any kind of Asian jokes. And
Mhm,
I purposely actually would avoid being around other Asians prior to my first trip. But
mhm.
then when I went back to Korea for that first time in 94, I came back knowing a little bit more of knowing who I am,
Yes.
just a little bit.
So well
And
said.
and of course in Korea, they'd always encourage me, learn Korean, know who you are.
Mhm,
And I mean, still haven't really learned Korean, but I know a little bit more of who I am. Part
mhm.
of it is also, besides the trip to Korea, is learning to meditate, where you get to really know who you are through that stillness. But that was my first wake-up call back in 1994. And then I went back to Korea in 2000, but there was more fun rather than soul searching.
Like that was like a completion for you, a sense of a
Right.
completion. So the next time it was just like, I'm just gonna go have fun. Like you didn't feel like you were soul searching. You were just enjoying.
Right. And that first trip, this I thought was interesting. When I went back in 94, I went on my own. I broke away from the group for one of the days. I thought, I just want to go out on my own because I knew I was very close to the orphanage where I grew up.
Mhm,
And so I went out on my own, and it's this orphanage. It wasn't the same orphanage, but it was very close and it was similar, apparently. And as soon as I stepped into this village area, the smell instantly brought me back to when I was a little boy
mhm,
looking for food.
Mm-hmm.
I was totally unprepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just started sobbing, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, I'm this little boy. But then I just said, whoa, 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 whoa. No, I'm not the little boy. And then all the memories came back
Mm-hmm.
just suddenly when I was a little kid looking for food again. And and it took me by surprise, but it was an incredible experience. The
Mm-hmm.
smell of whatever was cooking in the
Yeah.
village. And
Yeah.
that was a huge healing moment for me. And I'm glad I was by myself. I
Mm-hmm.
just needed that moment just to be right there on my own, absorbing all that.
Exactly. And yeah, that trauma gets recorded with all the senses, right? So it can be a smell, a hearing something, a seeing something,
That's
suddenly
the,
brings up the trauma. And then you dealt with it in a loving way. You just let yourself go through it, and then it just kind of clears out.
but I've never realized how smell can
Hmm.
bring back. It was just the smell of food. I remember as a kid, you smell food. Oh, okay, let's go over there and see what we can get.
Yes, yes. Yeah, because you said like it was like back in the day in Korea where like was that after the split had already happened with North and South Korea? It was already.
Right, right. And unfortunately, during the Korean War, from 1950 to 53, it
Hmm.
became like a third world country,
Hmm.
and it was
Both
ravaged
of
by the
them.
war.
Both of the Koreas, it was like that.
Right. In South Korea, I mean, it hurt them definitely economically.
Hmm.
And then during the Korean War, then a lot of the GIs stayed.
Mm.
And after the Korean War, and and this part is sad, where a lot of the Korean babies were abandoned. And it
Mm.
was a very common practice where if
Mm.
you didn't look Korean enough, that was one of the reasons. But the other big reason why they were abandoned, poverty. They just could not afford to have another mouth to feed.
Yes,
And
yes.
so it is believed that for me, because I was found as a baby and left in a public place where I could be found. So they weren't just going to leave me and where no one could find me. But
Mhm.
anyway, the records show that I was found in a public place. I was just an infant. And and so and that's why they just, I know they're right as far as my year, but they had to guess my birthday. And I believe they're very, very close. They guessed my birthday as December 26th,
Mhm.
67. So that's when I celebrate my birthday, December 26th.
Mhm.
But anyway, it's just a common practice during that time was the poverty.
Mhm.
All the way, I believe, through the 80s or the
Mm.
early 80s.
Wow, yeah. And now Korea is like so different, and it's one
Oh,
of the most advanced in health, like beauty. Everybody goes there for childbirth, and they're just
mhm.
very advanced. So
Yeah, it's
it's
booming economically now.
yes, yes. But I relate to what you said about not feeling Korean because when I with Persian culture, sometimes I relate to parts of it, but other times I'm like, I don't feel Persian. I feel like I'm like, all these other things too, because I've seen my past lives, and you too, you've had other past lives. So although in this lifetime we're in these cultures, we have had so many past lives when we've been other cultures. And I was told once that our soul does that, so it learns from every culture till it becomes complete.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that was the other wake up call when I realized, I'm not Korean.
Hmm.
I'm just Kim Kelly.
Hmm.
And then I was trying to think, how should I define myself? American Korean, Korean American.
Yeah.
Like as you're saying, really, we're neither any of that. I mean, we're the human soul if you want to look at it metaphysically. We
Exactly.
are really not male, not female. We are a human soul, a great spiritual being.
Exactly. Exactly. I feel like that feels the most true. When I say it, that feels the most true. And then when I, like you, like when I go to Persian places, I'm like, I can just be myself. I don't have to try to out Persian other Persians kind of thing. And so I think that's like the most peaceful way to look at it is like we are just like all one humanity, one family. And then all the divisions would go away. Because if you think about it, how much is culture dividing people? Like the wars that are going on is all like, I'm this religion, I'm this culture, let's kill each other. But if we all saw each other as one big family with different skin colors, different hair colors, it would be harder to hurt other people, right? When people are different is usually even in I think they train the army, they say look at them like they're different from you. They're not the same as you.
Mm.
Uh, so that's the big division point going
Well,
beyond.
I have hope just because we know in the higher ages
Mhm.
things are going to get better.
Exactly.
I mean, it seems like it's taking forever.
Hmm.
When you look at the Indian yoga cycles,
Mm,
There's the Kali Yuga, which is the lowest, and then I believe the Twatra Yuga, then the Dwapara Yuga, then the Satya Yuga. And right now, I believe we're still in the, yeah, we're in the Treta Yuga, which is still in the lower part of the
yeah,
circle,
yeah.
but at least we're going in the upward cycle.
Exactly. Like if
Things
that
will
only 1% just wakes up, all the spiritual people love themselves, heal their traumas, make peace with everything, then all of that could instantly bring a shift to the planet. And I feel like it
major
will
vibration.
happen. I heard
Mhm.
one lady say like 2032 for a deadline for the new Earth.
I
Diana,
believe that.
yeah. So we're getting there.
I mean, it might be sooner. And
Hmm.
then I hear about aliens coming to help us too. You never know. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm sure
They
people
are helping.
someday realize aliens are living among us or will someday dwell among us.
Totally. I believe they are. I mean, I feel like they are helping us, and I feel like more of them will come to help as well. But, I don't think like I've heard the news talk about how some aliens are evil, but I always tell people there's a very small percentage of them that are evil. The rest of the aliens are really good and they're benevolent beings and they want to help. And there's a doctor, there's a astrologer, he says there's 22 species of ETs on the planet right now, apparently. So,
Hmm. I
yeah.
would love to meet at least one of them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you might have, who knows?
Well, maybe you can interview one of the ETs someday.
I know, I gotta find one of them, but they're
Or
usually
maybe
gonna
they
be
want to interview you.
yeah, I would love to be interviewed by the ETs. I feel like they're
They'll have
hybrids
to beam you
and they
up.
look like humans. Yeah, I want to be beamed up with that like machine going there.
As long as they beam you back down.
Exactly. There's so many people that have stories of going in spaceships, right? And they have like all these and they think they're crazy, but a lot of them say the same story. So for me, whenever a lot of people are saying the same thing, it's hard to like make it up because they're all in different locations seeing similar stories, right?
Well, I know watching on the Jeff Mara podcast, he's talked to people where they truly have been with aliens, and I really do think their stories are credible when
Mm-hmm.
I watched his podcast about their encounters with aliens and that they are trying to help us.
Exactly.
In some ways, in the bigger scheme of things, God is kind of using them to help us to hopefully avoid any major, major, major conflicts or mitigate it.
Yeah, I agree because I was told they stopped nuclear wars before, because if you think about it, it hasn't happened that many times on Earth given how many nuclear bombs there are. So I feel like they do stop it, deactivate it, they stop it, and they're intervening because if a nuclear bomb happened on Earth, it would affect all of the galaxy. So that's why they get involved because usually they follow the law of like free will, which is like just let the
Mhm.
planet run with free will, but would it impact so many other things and that law can be broken and they can intervene.
I know this may seem far-fetched. When I was reading about Mars, has there been life on Mars? And I cannot remember the name of the author. It was an audiobook that I listened to last year.
Mhm.
And he was saying that through his guides, Mars was completely obliterated because of a nuclear war between these two groups on Mars. And so when one fired, the other fired, and of course that completely destroyed the planet. And I was thinking, okay, Mars, I'm sure was a very important planet and played an important role in the universe. But I wonder why the aliens didn't protect them, and yet he's saying the aliens are protecting the Earth
Mhm.
from destroying ourselves. So there's something special about Earth, why they're here to prevent that from happening like it did in Mars.
Yeah, so well said. Yeah, but Earth is like a school, like it's like a training ground for souls to advance. So it's like a very special place. And I think yeah, Mars has a history of like there was like a war type of aliens that used to live there or something like that. Like there's different kinds of aliens and there's one of them that like loves war. And so I think they might have been on Mars and it could have been some kind of a war, but yeah, Earth is protected because it just has like I think it's the soul evolution planet. That's why, like it has a special place in the galaxy somehow.
Well, with Earth, I was also reading, and this is from other sources too, where we're the third lowest planet in all of the universes out there. And
Mm,
I'm thinking, I know there's life on other planets. I just know there are. I know we have no proof, but I just feel it. And if we're the third lowest, oh my gosh. Can you imagine if we were the third highest? What we
mhm.
could be like? And I think eventually we'll get there.
Yes. I feel like the new earth is going to happen because there's people already living in the new earth. Like there's people that are having visions of the new earth, and some people believe some of the people that have crossed over are already living there. So it's kind of like they're waiting for us, to go there. And I think like there is going to be a split between the 3D and the 5D. I don't exactly know how it will happen, but I think this is what this eclipse is. It's kind of like there's going to be a lot of choice points where people can decide, am I going to go on this path or this path? So if they continue doing things that are not in alignment with their consciousness, they'll stay in the old earth. And then the people that are going to, and I think then the other people will go to the new earth.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, a lot of spiritual people have talked about this. So it's just, if it wasn't true, why would so many of them have talked about the kingdom of God shall come, that kind of stuff, right?
Right, I know the rapture.
Hmm.
And the Christian, they think of the rapture where all the saved will be taken before the tribulations come. And
Hmm.
that's another way of looking at it. And yes, again, through other podcasts that I've watched, they believe there will be the fifth dimension. People will just raise their vibration. And in some ways, that's like a rapture too, where people of the higher consciousness will be saved from the tribulation of the lower vibration that's about to descend.
Exactly. And the fifth dimension, like signs were in going in the fifth dimension, one of it is experiencing joy. Like experiencing peace and joy means your consciousness is lifting, almost like your antenna is connecting to that consciousness. But if you're constantly like thinking about revenge or hurtful things or
Mm,
mean or like that narcissistic thing, like then you're going in the lower world. And I think the split's going to be very great. And I think that's why there's an X over the US. Like it just the fact that
right.
the eclipse is drawing an X is like to me, it's like God is sending a very loud message, you
I'd
know?
like to know where that X is. Where does that crisscross the United States? Do you know
Mm,
what city or town? Because I know I'm sure there's a significance. Just like there's a significance how it starts in Jonah, Texas.
mm-hmm.
This current eclipse. I'm just wondering what city or town does it make that X mark?
Exactly. That's something we should look up because that's going to be significant too. Because the fact that it's starting in Texas and there's that rivalry stuff going on there right now, right? So
Right. Well, maybe someone who watches this, they can put it in the comments where they can do the
exactly.
research.
Yes, please do the research and put it in the comments so we can
Tell
bring
us where it crisscrosses exactly, because I'm just curious. I just know that particular place, there's a significance to it as well.
there has to be because what are the chances of an eclipse starting in the town called Jonah? I mean, that is just like beyond my mind already, right?
Also, the X mark, that's no accident either, right over the United States.
Exactly. And God is very exact and he loves math. So he never makes mistakes mathematically. And so there has to be a reason that he did that. And then the fact that it goes over the Nimue cities and one of them is in Canada. Apparently six are in America and the seventh
Oh,
one is in
wow.
Canada. So I thought that was interesting too.
Well, at least we'll see a partial eclipse where we are,
Exactly. Yes.
as
Hopefully
long as it's clear
it won't be
skies.
too much. Yeah. The
Hmm.
wherever the eclipse crosses the most, that will be where the most changes will occur. So it's kind of like the partial means not as impacted. But
You
yeah.
know, back in the time, when was it? I remember my wife and I we were talking about where is the safest place we can go in this world? Let's, God forbid, if anything happens, war or whatever, where is the safest place we can go to? We were talking about it. Someone overheard us and they came over and said, there is no safe place.
Mm-hmm.
It's here. Go
Mm,
within. It's like, whoa, go within. One, it's like, oh, and then we said, thank you. That was a great, that's an answer we needed to hear, to go within.
exactly. Oh, that's so well said. Exactly. Exactly. Because within is where he will talk to us and he will guide us,
And
and
yeah,
tell
he
us
told us
what
be the portable paradise.
be the what?
He told us be the portable paradise. Go wherever you go and be in the portable paradise.
Oh, wow.
So that we were so glad he overheard us and came up to
Yeah,
us and just told us this is the safest place.
exactly. Oh, wow. That's yeah, I need to sit with that and like let it kind of like go in because I think you're right. Because like we cannot go into a panic. We just have to stay calm and know that we're going to be led. Yeah.
Well, no matter what, he was just saying, just continue the meditations,
Mm-hmm.
continue your dharma. Just
Mm-hmm.
stay what you're doing, and no matter what, just surrender to God and do your parts. And my saying is just show up and God will do the rest.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Beautifully said. And could you explain what Dharma is to people that might not know what Dharma is? Because there's a lot of misunderstandings about
Yeah,
that word.
just following a path of of spiritual duty.
Mhm.
But everyone has their own dharma. For me, yes, we call it a sadhana too. It's our spiritual work.
Mhm.
But part of the dharma is being a naturopathic doctor is part of my profession. But I feel it is God-led. I really do feel when I heard that voice, God was telling me to be a naturopathic doctor. So it's my dharma to be in this profession, but it's also a sadhana as well. It's a spiritual work too, where I really do want to be God's instrument. And I always just pray, God, just flow through me, work through me, be my hands, be my brain, my heart, and that people can feel you through me so that I can just be your instrument,
Wow. That's a
working through
perfect
you.
prayer to use
And
like
but
every day of the day. Mm-hmm.
that's my dharma, but it's also, and then the sadhana part, besides being the naturopathic doctor, the sadhana also is doing the meditations. Because
Mm-hmm.
that's huge, where we just have that connection with God. And I do love when I do the 2 to 5 minute dips here in the office. It
Mm-hmm.
makes a big difference.
Yes, I for sure feel different the days I don't meditate. I mean, I feel completely like a different human being. The days I meditate, I feel like I'm prepared for whatever comes. My reaction time is slower. I can just kind of deal with it. And I feel like God covers me. And every time I do my meditation, I always see myself going under the feet of God. And I just say, I'm under your feet, guide my day today. And so, is that some of the, like, if you had to give some tips or advice for the light workers for the next few years, that those are some of the things you would say for them is like meditation is one, doing their dharma, however they're called, and any other tips, like whether
I
it's
think,
nutrition or
well,
anything.
yeah. Right now, Sharon and I are watching the 1977 movie Jesus of Nazareth.
Mhm.
One of my favorite parts in that scene is when Jesus talks about what is the greatest commandment? What is the greatest commandment? And Jesus tells the disciples to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, all your mind, and to love others with that same love. And
Mhm.
that would be my biggest thing for myself as well. I mean, it is hard though, where you try and love God, which means loving others as if they are God in them with all your heart, with all your strength, all your soul, all your mind. Because there are some people where you don't like them as much, or you're like, oh, not that person.
Yeah.
God, give me the strength where I can love that person with all my strength, mind, heart, and soul.
Wow.
And to fulfill that greatest commandment that Jesus taught.
Mhm.
And then I think through that, will God's light will shine even more through us, where it can be that genuine. And yes, sometimes we just gotta fake it till we make it and just be honest with ourselves, or it's hard. But I
Mhm.
think that's one of the greatest things we can do for
Mhm.
anyone, to just follow that first commandment that Jesus gave.
Mhm.
And of course, some people may ask, well, how can you love God if I mean, I remember as a kid, I remember I was in fifth grade, I was thinking, God, how can I love you? I don't even know you. I was just thinking there to myself in bed one night, it's like, I don't think I love you, God, because I don't know you.
Mhm.
And then through the meditations, it's like God was saying, just wanting to love God is loving God. Just wanting to is
Mhm.
loving God.
Wow.
And so if people can be in that mode where they can just really want to love God, it really will help them to see the God in everyone, or the God in all these situations, whether it be good circumstances, bad circumstances,
Mhm.
that as you said, God makes no mistakes. Try and see God in everything, and
Mhm.
to see God in the people and to love them. And
Absolutely.
of course, that includes ourselves, to see the God in ourselves. That's where it all starts first, loving ourselves, to see
Exactly.
the God within. But that would be my biggest thing.
Just
And
for
then
them to focus.
yeah, and then to get to know God, to try and sit in that stillness where we can feel Him.
Hmm. Yes, very well said. Because yeah, a lot of people approach God wanting something from God, right? Like, please help me with this, please do this. But when we approach God with just wanting to love Him, that's the key that opens the lock. Like, don't go to God wanting anything. Just go to God
No,
wanting to be His best friend, just loving
no
Him.
strings attached.
Because He knows our intentions, like He knows if you're loving Him for just to get something. But if you love God just purely, then it's like you're being His best friend, then He becomes your best friend. And in the
He
Bhagavad
really
Gita,
is.
that,
But
right?
I think when people turn to God, the first reason is as an insurance policy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, when things go bad, okay, God, you're right there.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I think when people turn to God is power. They want God for power.
Mm-hmm.
And the third reason people want to turn to God, it's devotion,
Mm-hmm.
out of devotion. And that's of course is when God he just gives himself.
Exactly.
Because those other ways, it's just a little cup. You're just holding out a little cup. And that's how God feels. But when
Mm-hmm.
you give yourself, he fills you. Everything. And that's how I feel God is filling me. I
Absolutely.
just want to give myself to God.
Exactly. And that's like it's such a like powerful state of surrender to do that, especially when people have become a doctor, like you're a doctor, so you could go into your ego and say, I'm a doctor, I don't need God, but you're saying, no, I need God more so even now. And I think that's really important. The spiritual ego is talked about a lot in the Yoga Sutras, and it says it's the biggest hindrance to reaching enlightenment is the different levels of the spiritual ego. So surrendering to God and just saying, I just want you. I don't want anything else. All these powers you've given me, I would give them all up just to be your best friend, kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I think that's a lot of spiritual people in the community are kind of lost in that. They're focused a lot on clairvoyance and clairaudience, and those things are beautiful. And a lot of us have those gifts, I always say, and it's beautiful, but it can't stop us from connecting to God because we
It
can get
really can
fascinated with them.
because they're distractions.
Exactly.
Because yes, there are a lot of people, especially watching these people who have NDEs, they do come back with a lot of incredible gifts.
Mhm.
But again, when I read it in the book of Corinthians, the Apostle Paul says, God can give you all these gifts, but if there's no love, it means nothing. You can have the gift to heal, but no love means nothing. You can have the gift to raise the dead or move mountains, but if there's no love, it means nothing. And so that's where the true growth it will come. And just for me, my way of trying to love God is through the meditations where I get to know him just a little bit more. Like
Mhm.
we are just now touching fingers where I can
Mhm.
feel him. And then to myself, I always try and just mentally chat to God or talk to God, where I
Mhm.
can just always be in tune and connected to him throughout the day if I can.
Exactly, exactly. So well said. And if there is, God forbid, like an emergency or something, you had that where God has given you like a warning or somehow like you were told not to leave the house or someday? Like, do you feel like he has your back and has there been evidences of that in your life?
Yeah, I mean, there has been. I remember this is actually a long time ago. Oh, no, sorry.
No worries, no worries.
I remember a long time ago. Um, this is when I was a student at Bethel College. I was in Sweden. I was going for a nice run. And I thought, oh, there's a nice hill up there. I'm gonna go run up that hill and over it. So I thought I'm gonna charge up that hill. And I was running up the hill. Again, I felt this strong voice saying, stop. I
Mm,
thought, oh, that's kind of strange. Stop. But then I stopped. And I thought, okay, I'll stop. And
mhm,
then right when I was getting towards the peak of the hill dropped down. It was a drop off. And remember, it was that loud voice again, stop.
mhm.
And it's like, whoa, I would have plunged to my death if I
Exactly.
had not listened to that. And yes, there's been other times just driving here, a commute to work, where, I'm in one lane. I remember it was a few months ago.
Mhm,
I felt a strong, strong intuition, not about it, but it's just a strong intuition, get in the other lane now.
mhm,
So I
mhm,
did. Okay. Even though I had to take a left, I thought, okay, I'll get in the right lane because I'll miss my turn. And
mhm.
guess what? A car sped through and slammed into a car in front of
Wow.
that car. So it would have been me, but it unfortunately hit another car and
Mhm,
totally wrecked it. It was a
mhm.
speeding car. Apparently they were drag racing. They were
Oh,
racing.
mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was just one of those moments where it was immediate, like get in the next lane now, even though so I missed my turn, but I'm glad I
Yeah.
followed. Then I, of course got out and called 911. But
Mhm.
that's just one example.
Yeah, God is so personally involved with our day-to-day life, as I like to always tell people. People think God is detached, but I feel like he's so personally involved and he's looking out for us. And some people might say, well, I don't hear that or I don't sense that. And my question for them would be like, how much time are you spending every day loving God? Because it's a two-way relationship with God. And some people say, well, God should just be that way to everybody. It's like, yeah, but every parent, even if they have one child that's a murderer and they have another child that's helping others, which of those children do you think the parent is going to favor? God obviously loves everybody equally because that's his power. He doesn't
Yeah,
have favorites. But if one of his child is a murderer, he's going to give them a freedom to keep doing that till they come
mhm,
back towards him. That's one of his highest laws is free will, right? And so his other child that's helping people, of course, he's going to continue to help him intuitively because he's helping people. But the one that's hurting people, he's going to actually make him dumb. He might make him lose his brain sometimes. So he does affect people that are evil in physical ways to kind of stop them from doing bad things.
actually to protect them.
To protect them, exactly, to cause more harm,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. And there again, I was just reading an example of that for this person. He had the propensity to hurt people and to kill people. And then strangely, he just went insane.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, I think, as bizarre as it sounds, it actually was protecting him from creating more bad karma.
Exactly.
Went
Exactly. I heard
insane.
one of my clients say they had a grandparent that had molested all the grandchildren, and then he
Oof.
got Alzheimer's, and then he passed away. So the Alzheimer's, and obviously not everybody that has issues is an evil person. We can't generalize it. But yeah, I do think God intervenes in ways that are mysterious and hard to understand. He's definitely taking care of the evil. And somebody was asking me yesterday, well, if there is a God, why are so many children getting hurt? And so I was like, but
Right.
that doesn't mean he's not involved. Look at all the things that have come out about child sex trafficking and all the evil in the Hollywood is coming out. So he is bringing the truth out. He just
Yes, but as you were saying, we all have our free will.
exactly,
He doesn't intervene, but he has all the light workers trying to help doing his work,
exactly,
trying to just get this world to change. It's a slow process, but it is happening. I
exactly.
do have hope. It will get better.
Look at how many more holistic places are around now, like naturopathic doctors. There's more, right? Like maybe 100 years ago, there
Oh, there's
wasn't
a
as
lot more.
much, right?
Hmm.
Like all the yoga studios and different ways that people are getting better, trauma centers, rehab centers, things like that. So God inspires good people to be his hand on earth. And so that's why as all the light workers in the next few years really kind of awaken to their power, we're going to see that big change, the
Hmm.
0.1% getting on their
Exactly.
dharma.
Exactly.
That's
And then some people, I remember I had a patient. She's saying, Dr. Kelly, I don't know what I can do to help make this world a better place. She was just thinking, oh, I don't have any skills. And I said, yeah, you do. You know what? All it takes is a smile. She said,
Mhm.
oh, that's a small thing. And it's like, no, no, it isn't. Because I just remember the saying when I was a kid, it takes a great person to do a small thing. So
Mm,
be that great person. Show
mm,
that smile. Be that light just through your smile. And then, of course, then she used it. Yeah, of course. So just do
exactly.
that.
Exactly,
That's
because
so
somebody
good.
could be suicidal. We don't know what they're going through, and we just smiling at them could really change their day. Like, oh, actually, there is somebody that cares about me, right? And that's
Exactly.
that when we smile at someone, it actually opens their heart chakra, especially if they smile back. When I was in Sedona, that was a message I got from God. He said, go around and make everybody smile. He literally said that. It's exactly like what
Mhm.
you're saying. He was like, make everybody smile. And I've noticed I'll meet somebody at the grocery store, they're like grumpy, maybe they had a hard day, and I just tell them, I love your shirt, like I love your hair. And I give them genuine compliments and it makes them smile. And I do think that plants a seed and they go home. They're like,
Yeah,
actually, something good happened today. And sometimes just a little bit of hope can change somebody's life completely around.
that's it. If they have hope, then of course, then it just gives you the will to do
Yeah,
anything for sure.
exactly. And not giving up. So they keep going on their journey. And maybe the next day they meet an angel that ends up helping them with a job or they do something new and it just kind of gives them that shift, you know?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so well.
In Pontea, I actually have to wrap up soon here.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you so much. And I so appreciate you being here,
Oh,
taking
thank
time,
you.
your busy week. I so appreciate all the help you've given me. You and Sharon introduced me to Reverend Bill, and I just love him. So thank you so much for everything. And I look forward to sharing this with everybody so they can benefit from all your wisdom.
My pleasure. We
Thank
are
you.
the light.
Yes, we are. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye. I'm just gonna
Bye.
stop the recording.